A warm welcome back onto the program. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Before we went on that break, we did tell you that today our focus will be on the claim by the World Bank stating that 129 million Nigerians are living in poverty. Now, according to the report which was released in Abuja sometime last week, the World Bank did say that this number represents 40.1% increase in 2018 to now 56% in 2024, and this is attributed to many factors. One of the biggest of the factors is the inflation rate of Nigeria. But again, the world body, should one be worried about this pronouncement by the World Bank? Of course, everybody knows that Nigerians are hungry, but again, putting 129 million living in poverty, that again is a call for concern. We do have a financial advisor who is in the studio this morning. Home together, we'll be taking a look at this topic. Join us as a welcome, Dr. Shala G. Thank you for being here on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
The World Bank is a reputable body the world over. When they speak or when they give figures, everyone wants to take account of what they've said. But were you worried when you saw this particular figure, 129 million Nigerians, from over 200 million that we have as citizens, and that's more than half of the population living in poverty? And if you look at the word poverty, again, it means abject hunger and extreme purposes. Would you agree totally with that claim by the World Bank?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised though. And when you look at vis-a-vis what happened last year, there was no major difference. Let me even bring you down the memory line. When you look at World Bank itself, that was established in 1944, the primary aim for establishing World Bank then was to rebuild Europe and Japan after the Second World War, right? And that's why they call them International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And backward, you see that then Africa was the one that is feeding the Western world then. Africa was the one that was subsidizing them then. And around 1974, IMF came to loan money from Nigeria, 1974. They came to loan money from Nigeria, and Nigeria will loan them the fund then. So when you look at it, 64 years after independence, Nigerians should not be seen as a developing country. We should have been seen it become a developed nation, right? And when you look at it now, that the rise of Africans, the rise of Africa is dependent and it lie on the shoulder of Nigeria, because Nigeria is the largest country with the largest black race, right? So the rising of Nigeria will also snowball to the rising of Africa at large. And when you look at in 2022, September precisely, UN came up with a data and says that then our population was around 217 million. Then, and there was a statistics that says that 33.3% are unemployed. They're under unemployment. And so when you look at the 3.3%, that's around 72 million, right? Out of 217 million then. More than 10 million people. 11 million out of employment space, going to almost 180 million. So the portion of it that actually underemployment is 15.5%. 15.5%, those are just 32 million. So around 32 million out of 217 million then. So it shows that only 32 million are employed. So 32 million, so 180 million are dependent on 32 million that are employed. And then they came with a data and said that over 133 million Nigeria are living under multi-dimensional poverty, right? So which means that they are trapped under the poverty, and not just poor, right? It's under multi-dimensional. So which means that, which means that they are even poor among the poorest, right? So that was in 2023. That was in 2022. So 2023, fast forward now. So when they now say that around 129 million Nigeria are trapped under the poverty bucket, right? So it shows that it's not far from being true. And when you even look at 2023, and we are looking at, fuel is around 250, it moves to around 1,000 plus. Our dollar is around less than 300, is now over 1,700. So then an average Nigeria cannot survive with $1 right per day. And so when you look at this vis-a-vis, the statistics is not far from being true, because they have data to be able to back up their claims.
Dr. Ganiyu, looking at the stark reality on ground, the rate of inflation is quite high, rate of unemployment, and the fact that most Nigerians are barely surviving, they can hardly feed, and that their purchasing power kept dwindling. Would you have any reason to say that the World Bank report stating that 129 million Nigerians are living below poverty line is the truth?
Very, very well, because when you know currently now, our population is around 229 million plus. So if 129 millions are living poor, so only 100 million. So 100 million is now talking about part of them middle class or high class and every other thing. So even the middle class has been eroded, right? So everybody is now in the same bucket. And when you look at it, where we try to check it backward, and when you look at when the minimum wage came up then, right, during the first tenure in Buhari regime, and when you look at 30,000 was equivalent to $94 then. So fast forward now, even now say that they now push minimum wage to be 70,000. 70,000 is not even equal to $94. So because in the real sense, they are worse off. Right, they are worse off. So if you want to match it, so minimum wage should be going to around 150,000 Naira. Right. If you want, that means that you are not even increasing it, you are putting them to where they were in the first tenure of Muhammadu Buhari. So it shows that there's not increasing. So because once you factor in inflation, and you say that the purchasing power of people has been eroded. So there's no more, they cannot even use the fund they have to be able to purchase things. What they want. What they want. And also when you look at it, and when you look at the inflation index, it keeps increasing. And once it keeps increasing, and not only inflation index now, when you look at also some parameters, food inflation, we have it now. When you look at it, most of the drivers of these inflations are the highest one is the food inflation. We look at what is happening in Benue now. Benue should be like the food basket of Nigeria. That's even their watchword. They should be the food basket of Nigeria. But now most of the farmers in Benue, they're in IDP camp. They cannot even go to farm because the bandits and the kidnappers are already on them. And there's this guy in there that they call him Full Fire. And it's not even levying them and say per household you must pay specific amount of levy for me to be able to enjoy it. So all these parameters affect not only the purchasing power of citizens, it also affects our economy at large, because the food basket, they are no longer producing food. And because they are not producing food, food becomes scarce at the other side. Look at what has happened in Jos when they said that, a basket of tomato is not up to 20,000, but for them to transport it to Lagos, it's worth over 140,000. So indirectly, which means that the gap there is around 100,000 on a basket. So where do we have to hit? So these are the things that are pushing inflation and makes people to look for alternative way to be able. That's when people now begin to think that cucumber is an alternative way
for
to
tomatoes.
so you cannot see people now begin to think outside the box.
After all, they are both round. But I mean, Dr. Ganiyu, you mentioned during your first submission, while trying to lay actually, explain the claim by the World Bank and, alluding to the fact that is not far from the truth. You mentioned glowingly one of the biggest issues, and that is the fact that high unemployment or underemployment rate is one of the biggest issues that we do have, where you also, put figures to the number of people depending on those who are employed. That's one. If you take a second look at another issue, in all of this, we are increasing in growth. We are not, yes, people are dying, but yet we are procreating. And that also is one of the major factors that we do have in Nigeria as a nation. So if you look at under unemployment or unemployment as well as a rapid growth, how can you put those two as two of some of the issues? Of course, you mentioned inflation as well, but let's look at those two first as two of the issues that we need to combat with if truly our leaders need to take us away from the position we are at the moment.
Okay, that's a brilliant question. Nigeria typically we're a consuming economy, and there's no consuming economy that typically grow, right? And when a World Bank is giving you advice, right, we need to domesticate it. Every jurisdiction, they are peculiar in their policies and implementation. So there are some policy that will actually help and strengthen the World Bank as against Nigeria. You will, backward, you look at what happened to structural adjustment program that World Bank advised us to implement then. You see how it actually hit us badly, right? So we look at the policy we have, then we domesticate it vis-a-vis. Is it actually what will, in the long run, help Nigeria, or it will worsen our survival strength? And when you look at it now, in the early 80s, you see, in the early 80s, we major more when you look at what is happening. There are development, people are getting educated, and when you say an average graduate, even before leaving school, they go to school and poach them and give them job. Then when people got a job as a lecturer, they're happy because lecturers are well paid than the people working in oil and gas. So when you get let's example, you get a job in Chevron then, and somebody gets a job as a fourth lecturer, one in the university, the person that got a job in Chevron, sir, will feel bad because he wants to be a lecturer because they will just encourage the guy and say that just keep up to it because every 6 months they change their wardrobe, they make their life better, and they are producing a quality education. Then people travel from Canada, they travel from UK to come and study in Nigeria because our education is very strong. And then you see that in the long run, you look at one of the things that actually affects us is that when you look at down the line, a lot of multinational companies that live in the space of Nigeria, you will see then Michelin tire is being produced in Nigeria. Dunlop tire was being produced in Nigeria then. You remember this shoe they call Bata shoe, so that it's one of the best shoes then that you wear then. So we have a lot of producing income. Even the TV that looks like a door then that they need to open.
Grundig.
Yeah, it's been manufactured in Nigeria. So Nigeria is a manufacturing hub then. In Kaduna, you see them assembly Peugeot.
Right.
So an average Nigeria does not even have the flair of driving Tokunbo car. You see them driving brand new car, right? So most of these manufacturing ops, right, they employed citizens of Nigeria. They won't bring people from their country to come and employ them. They might only bring few expatriates, but Nigeria is where they will engage the citizens of Nigeria. They'll develop Nigeria, and those people, immediately, the more people they employ, the more their purchasing powers are increased. And once their purchasing powers are increased, our GDP will be increased because we will have more to sell and more to buy, right? And when you look at now, in some few months or few years now, some multinationals are leaving the shore of Nigeria. GSK are leaving, has left, with Kakabri, and some of them over there, right? They leave. And most of these people, they are highest employers of labor. Most of them employ as far as 10,000, 20,000 staff across the globe, right? So once, and it's been on record, statistics have it for everyone employed, they have minimum of 5 dependents. So if one person loses his job, in other words, it's more or less there's like 6 people that have lost their job. So 6 times 10,000, that's almost like 60,000. So you could look at the multiplier effect on our economy. And so you now see that a lot of things, then we don't have issue of bandits and kidnapping them. So people now see it as a way of making more money. And so because of it, is now even the CBN, they don't have control of the money in circulation. You can see that our interest rate is about 27 point something %, and it's not even curbing the inflation, because in the elementary economy, we said that, oh, for you to curb inflation, you need to reduce the number of money in circulation. But now, since you don't have jurisdiction, you don't have control over the volume of money in circulation. So how do you control it? Right? There was a time they got to some people's house, they saw a lot of money stuck in the wardrobe, stuck in the old house, because CBN can, so you can decide to begin to use the control mechanism, but it will not affect a lot of them because you are not withdrawing the money in circulation. So it's not even having an effect. And you know, we also have, there's 2 tools to be able to control the economy. We have the monetary policy and we have the fiscal policy. So if you are not using monetary policy to be able to control fiscal policy, we will not have the result we should have.
Dr. Ganiu, as part of this report, the country director of World Bank, Dr. Idiame Diop, did say that some of the reforms being introduced by the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that they are quite good, and it will be dangerous for Nigeria to reverse some of these policies if indeed we want to stabilize the economy of this country. But yet Nigerians are out there, they are feeling the pains. Having studied some of these reforms as well, does it give you hope that at the end of the day, according to a projection of the World Bank now, that implementation will be done significantly in such a way that it's going to impact Nigerians and make their life better?
Well, Nigerians are good in policies. We have brilliant policies, we have brilliant words. But one of the most challenges we have is implementation. You can have a good policy, but if you don't have the implementation strategy, you don't have the political will, you don't have the strength to be able to carry it out. It's as good as the policy. It's just like a dream, a vision that you don't have action plan. It will still remain in the realm of dreams, right? So when we don't have implementation strategy, right? Okay, take for instance that you have the policy to be able to achieve XYZ, right? So have we started implementing it? Take for instance now, an average Nigerian has to tighten their belt to ensure that, because their policy. So we now have that, more cars are being purchased for them in the House of Assembly, or new airplane was being bought, or yacht was being bought. You can now discover that, are we actually deceiving ourselves, or we actually meant what we are? Let's look at it, what happened in Kenya. The Kenya governor said, the Kenya president says that, I know what is happening to my citizen. I cannot afford to go and buy XYZ now. We need to, everybody needs to say, so it also needs to cut down the cost of governance. So we might not be pretending that we might not be saying that things are bad, and yet we are living large. So our lifestyle does not reflect or mirror what is happening. So our lifestyle must be able to mirror, to show that we are ready for change. Let's look at what happened in China. We are not the first person that passes through this. China was in this mess, but they decided and said that, we won't go on like this. We must change the status quo, right? And they closed their door to the global supply and said that we are going to ensure that what is being produced in China is consumed in China. So they reduced their appetite for foreign products. So that is why we now discover that China is one of the biggest the manufacturing hub for the globe. So because they decide, right, and they have political will, that irrespective of who you are in the country, once you are found to be guilty or you're working against the sources of the country, you will be sentenced.
Is the removal of subsidy not a political will from Mr. President? Very well.
It's a political will, but you don't know that is a policy. Right, but there must be a strategy to be able to ameliorate it, right? So it's just like you giving birth to a child, and after 1 month you decide to stop breastfeeding the child, right? How will it survive? But you must either do it, okay, let me have, maybe because, let me see a way I could also ensure that this child has something to eat as a way to ameliorate it. Yeah, we know that subsidy is a scam, right? So the thing is just like, for us to be able to ensure we control this, before, as I'm removing the subsidy, I ensure that every transportation, I subsidize the transportation. So those people that are carrying people, so those are statistics, because most of the things that take away most people's income is transportation,
feeding,
right? And feeding, even feeding, you need to transport it from one place to the other. So most of these market women, because of their transporting it from one place to another, so because of the transport cost, it makes it, so once you subsidize the transport and the CNG buses, you make it available. So the subsidy on transport, like what the president does then, when you are traveling during the festive period,
make the train available
at a reduced price. Right. So at that point in time, so it now shows that the average Nigerian, people at the low level, they could also enjoy the benefit. So you'll not see an average rich guy to go on public transport, right? You'll not see him to go perhaps on train, right? So which means that you have dovetail it to an average Nigerian, so that it's of the, maybe the transport they need to take for a 1,000 naira, you subsidize 800, and they do it for 200 naira. So everyone enjoy it. So it goes across broad. You would discover that immediately the statement says subsidy is gone. Our currency was devalued. Dollar rise to almost 1,000 then, right? You could see that the food, prices begin to rise because everything is around the fuel we are talking about. Okay. It's around fuel. So all these things, so for us to be able to ensure this, and it also affects the employers, right? Because most of it is being done, they provide electricity for themselves, so they power their gen, they power everything. So because subsidy is gone, it increased their overheads. Okay. And once it increased the overhead, they now make a decision either to downsize or to reduce their costs.
Dr. Ganiu, one of the things that Dr. Diop also did say in that release was that the fact that being employed is not even a guarantee of being able to escape poverty, because many jobs are not productive and therefore remunerative enough to afford a life beyond poverty. Bringing me to one of the things I said Jibola mentioned earlier, he did say that the president and his team were taking some tough decisions, and then the country should not go back on some of these tough decisions. But where I'd like for us to look at before we end this conversation is, he did say that poor economic management is also an issue. And so if you have a team that, you know, is looking at ways to at least cushion the effect on Nigerians, what are some of those things that you wish this administration will consolidate on to at least buffer you know, the hunger and the inflation issues that we do have in the country at the moment?
Yeah. Number one thing is that, we should, like, one of the strength of our business to have electricity. We make it available. You know, the raw material that to use, right? We make it. We somehow make it available, right? And we see a way to curb these issues of bandit and kidnapping. This is eating deep, because even an average Nigerian, they don't even have the. You will just imagine how they view Nigeria in the global space. One of them outside country, they believe that immediately you step into Nigeria, you'll be kidnapped. So we have a bad picture like that, and it's not as bad as like that as it is. So one of the things I think is also we should at least make it a system work. System in the sense that nobody can beat system. Take for instance now, if you have an employment an organization that you work in, and there's no clocking, you can come in at 10 o'clock and sign in 8 o'clock.
That'll be 7 o'clock.
Or 7 o'clock, depending on the person that signs. But if you have to clock in, because the system automatically will just pick it up. So if we have the reason why we have, it's not that an average human, we have the tendency of throwing caution into the wind. Right. But because their system that works, that's why you see an average American or Chinese, once they come to Nigeria, they throw caution into the wind because there's no system, nothing to be able to nip them to the board, right? But if we can put system in place, even our porous border, and we put perhaps CCTV, we put surveillance in place, you see that somehow, some way, will be secure because people will be meant to be accountable. System will be able to track things, right? And it's not also talking about policy, we must also talk about implementation. In my field of work, there's what we call monitoring. You see, there's a saying that says people will not do what you tell them to do, they will only do what you monitor. So we must also put strategy in place that, yeah, we have this policy. The president cannot do everything. Right. But there's a saying that said, uneasy lies the heads that wears the crown. That's why everybody is mentioning it. So the question is that those people he put in charge of XYZ, what are the parameters put in place to monitor their level of performance, their level of achievement, and implementation of the policy? Because if the implementation is not there, the policies is as good as being in book.
Right.
Okay. If indeed we're serious about moving most Nigerians out of the poverty index, the free fall of our currency is another major concern. How do you think we can change this narrative in such a way that it's going to have some worth?
Honestly, this is a brilliant one. It's, we are not, look, you know, India is much more worse than Nigeria then. But Indian economy is coming up. Indian population is about 1.4 billion. We are just 200 and something. But India says that, this thing must end. And their economy is developing. Now, I can tell you for free, to get US visa is much more easier than to get Indian visa. When you talk about the ICT world, India is doing very well. In the medical space, India is doing very well. India now says that what we produce in India, we must consume it in India. So it makes people to think outside the box.
Okay,
you understand?
Sorry, Dr. Ganiu. I'll hold your thoughts. So we will pick it from here. We need to take a commercial break. When we return, he will conclude his thoughts comparing India and Nigeria. We'll take this short break and we'll be right back.
And you wake up in the morning, you want to start your day, start with Kellogg's, You can reach your grades, stay active and alert, start your day right.
Because Kellogg's is fortified with the essential vitamins and minerals you need to start your day right. With Kellogg's, you can reach your grade.
The breakfast time is Kellogg's time.
Thank you for staying tuned. We still have Dr. Shala Ganiu in the studio, and he will conclude his thoughts on the question Ajibla asked him earlier. Back to you.
Yeah, so most of the thing we can also do is that we should ensure that our transactions are totally denominated in naira. Right? Because, you know, there was a time Russia also said that if you want to buy anything in Russia, you use the Russia currency. And before you know it, Russia currency becomes to get stronger. You see, so you see, it will not put pressure on naira. Do you know, as we speak, people will just take their naira and convert it in dollar and keep it because they are not sure of what will happen tomorrow. Yes. So we must come with a policy and says that every I like the way they say that every corridor they are selling to Dangote should be in naira. Beautiful, right? So not only that, if that you are multinational or anything, once you are residing in Nigeria, your currency for transaction must be naira. So that makes it easier for people now. People now will be eager to get naira. So there will be less pressure on dollars, right? There will be less pressure on naira, and people will not go more on dollars. And we should also do more of export than import, right? Because when we do more import, it also put pressure on our currency, because you don't need naira to get something from outside the country. So we have to go deep into our foreign reserve to pick it up. We should be able to encourage the consumption of what is being produced in Nigeria and have a control mechanism so that it will also help our small and medium enterprises to be able to have courage and confidence that it's good doing business in Nigeria.
So, I mean, while we've been speaking, we've been directing all of our conversation to the government. Is there a role the populace, the citizens also play in all of this? Because like you said, on easy where's the head that lies, you know, where's the crown? Every time it's about the president, about the governors, the chairman and all of that. Is there any role that the citizens will also play here? Because you've talked about making institutions work, making the system work. You cannot work, the system cannot work if the people do not buy into that project. So is there a role? But then again, the people are hungry. So are they receptive to any advice at the moment?
Yeah, I think they are. But one thing is that, you see, the body language of the government will also depends on the citizen, right? If the government is showing the good faith of it, citizens can also say, oh, we can also tighten our belts, all right? Like having a taxable, and it's not the best of doling out money for citizens. Take, for instance, you decide to give
them palliative.
Yes, in cash, because it will worsen the inflation rate. Because we are a typical consuming nation. You give me 50,000 now. What comes to my mind that is belong ahead pounded yam. I'll go for a yam that is what maybe 9,000 per yam. So I pick the yam. Before you know it, before I say Jack Rabbit, see 50,000 is gone. So I'm back to where I was. So why not create an employment or empower me, right? Perhaps a skill training, just so that I can earn more money. So it will not be as if that thing is wrong. So I earn and I use the money, and the money gets back to the government. Okay. Do you get it? So that makes a life much easier. And as citizens also we have our roles to play. Our roles to play is also we need to obey the law of the land. The government cannot be everywhere, right? We are also government, right? Like someone was in an estate one day and she drank a bottle of water, drop it down, she drop it and throw it on the floor. And the person cleaning the estate just sweep it and drop it into her car. It starts with us. There's like a saying that says charity begins at home, right? Yeah, the government has a whole things to do, but we should also start a little thing we could do for ourselves. Let's do it. So government start with us. We should not be inhuman to ourselves and be wicked to ourselves. I would say government at the top is also wicked to us. Like I tell people also is that you will always be remembered for two things: the problem you solved and the problem you created.
Okay, but are you with some of those reforms being undertaken by the federal government that we might change the narrative as regards this figure?
We might change the narrative. Nigeria has the tendency of being the world giant. But the only thing I say, implementation and political will. Let me just take you fast forward. Something happened in Dubai. When the Prince of Dubai assumed office, the same corruption happened. And he discovered that these are one of the king's the princes that did it. You give them perhaps a contract of 50 billion or 10 billion, they execute 20 billion, 10 billion, or 2 billion, and they siphon 8 billion into their pocket. So what he did is that he got a very good hotel in Dubai, lodged all the king children there, and he said, you can come in with your wife there, but what is that you can't go out? The best food is for you. We won't jail you. I know you. They gave you a contract of 10 billion, you only use 1 billion. Where is the 9 billion? No, we don't have. So all of them were ranting. So in the long run, you don't like being, you like your freedom as a rich man. So 1 week, 2 weeks they're there, one just say, is it 10 billion? Look, out of 10 billion, I can give you 5 billion. Forget the remaining 5 billion. Okay, just bring the 5 billion. So another one say, the wife of the other one say, Mr. He has given 5 billion. What are you still waiting there? Out of the 6 billion, okay, I'm giving 4 billion. So within a short while, the Prince of Dubai was able to get, assuming, almost $50 billion. And those people were not jailed, they were not sentenced, but they still get the money and he used it to to develop the country. And the country is one of the globe where people wants to stay. Now imagine Dubai here that comes to us around late 70 and says that we should borrow them money, and President Obasanjo says that I cannot throw my money in desert. Now Dubai now says that for you to come from Nigeria to our country you must have minimum of 16 million naira in your account before so you can imagine how narrative goes. So I see if we can look inward, political will, implementation, Nigeria will come up strong.
All right, you've heard it from Dr. Shala G. He is a financial advisor, and of course he's lent his views on the claim by the World Bank that 129 million Nigerians are living in poverty, and what our government as well as the citizens can do to ensure that there is a change in this narrative. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me around.
Let's take a quick break. When the conversation returns, the Lagos ladies will take us through their conversation.